All right, guys. In this video, we're going to talk about how to learn any language in 3 months. Okay, so the language barrier breakthrough. This happens normally at about the 3 month mark, and it is the best part of learning a language. So it'll just happen in the middle of a conversation, and suddenly there'll just be this feeling of freedom and joy as this language that you've been struggling with for weeks suddenly flows out of you, and you just feel like I could talk about anything to anyone, and you'll just know that native speakers can just sense your ability because often we're embarrassed when we're speaking a new language, speaking to these proficient native speakers. But at this point, you could just hold a conversation with them and just speak your mind, and it's such a feeling of freedom. So it's an incredible experience, and this is really what most people mean by they're fluent in a language. Is people who've gone through this period. So these are the four pillars to learning a language. You can learn language like a bajillion, trillion different ways, but you need to hit these four milestones. So you need to hit vocab, pronunciation, conversation, and grammar. And if you only do two, for example, in schools, it's very common to only do vocab and grammar. You're going to have a bad time, and you're not actually going to be competent in that language. The biggest mistakes when it comes to each of these pillars for vocab, it's learning unimportant vocab first or using bad memorization techniques. For pronunciation, it's actually not learning pronunciation at all. No one knows. This is the thing. No one knows how to teach pronunciation. Okay, I'll show you a little. I'll show you what I think is the best way. But really, teachers and students, we're all stuck. Really, it seems like either you have a natural gift for it or you're screwed. So people tend to skip over pronunciation, but that's a mistake. Grammar, it totally depends on the language. Biggest conversation mistake is similar to pronunciation. People don't want to have conversations in the beginning just because they're scared, and who can't understand that, right? Okay, let's talk about high level strategy. So week by week, what should your kind of focus look like? So right in the beginning, just learn some words, right? Learn some phrases, just some fun things to say in that language. This is probably what you naturally did anyways, right? You're on Duolingo, you're learning some phrases and some words and, how to say he has an apple and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And then you're going to switch focus, but you're going to come back to vocab pretty soon, and you're going to learn a lot of vocabs, but not as much as you might think. So you only need to know about 3,500 words, 4,000 of the most common words to really be able to speak, to hold a conversation like proficiently or to really feel competent. So that's it. That's only 3,000, 4,000 words. That's not a lot. So yeah, that's it. The second thing, though, is pronunciation. And yeah, you're going to have fun with learning words right in the beginning, but then you need to really focus on pronunciation and lock this in here. So if you don't do this at this point in time, you're going to have bad experience learning this mountain of vocab because you're just like how the brain stores words. It matters how you pronounce them, because if you can't pronounce words uh, just accurately, you're also not going to be able to hear them accurately. And because of that, your brain can easily just mix signals up. And then when you actually pull words out in conversation to speak it, you'll also mix that up. So it's really important to nail pronunciation right here. And for another reason is if you learn it later, you're already going to have been speaking quite a bulk of the language for a while, and you're just going to have bad habits to unlearn. So it's important to learn this now. And grammar is one of the later things to focus on. And let's just think, people don't know what grammar is, and that's fine. No one knows what grammar is. But we could just say grammar is just it's the ability to compose a sentence, right? To just put words together, and boom, there's a sentence. And because of that, obviously, it doesn't make sense to learn grammar until after we've been learning a little bit more vocab. And then conversation. Conversation is the latest thing to kind of naturally evolve out of this, just out of your language learning. And in the beginning, only a little bit, right? Be gentle with yourself. Be easy with yourself. Just a couple, a greeting and a goodbye. You just in and out of the conversation. And then later it'll gradually build up more and more and more. And so yeah, like week 5, 10, 20 seconds. We'll talk about how to kind of manage this, how to find someone who want to talk with you for only that. But this is what you'll be doing in the beginning. And then 1 to 2 minutes at about week 8, week 9, 3 to 5 minutes. and then boom, this is the breakthrough. This is when it happens. And by this point, like it looks like a straight line, but really it's it's exponential from here. You just it's a feeling of limitlessness. Like, okay, there's no limit to my conversations now. I could just talk and talk and talk and talk, no problem. Okay, now let's quickly talk about motivation. So obviously your motivation when learning the language is super important. So I've seen people learn languages from a place of fear because like I have to learn the language, and like I need to learn the language in order to have this job opportunity, or if I this is what'll happen if I don't learn the language, compared to value-based motivation, which is like, holy crap, Hawaiian is sick. That is so nice. Right? So this is like, I need to learn this language. It's not enjoyable. I have to. And this is, man, I get to learn this language. This is so nice. So just two totally different worlds. This person, because they're just relaxed and enjoying it as they're learning the language, they can memorize words more easily. Even if they're making mistakes in conversation, it doesn't matter. They're just enjoying the process, Whereas for this person, every mistake is so enormous and so significant because really of the underlying fear. And because, I mean, yeah, and like obviously we can all relate to this, right? We all understand what that's like. But for that reason, it's important that we really switch into a different mode of being when we're learning language. Okay, let's talk about common language hangups. So these are, this is just kind of neuroses in the collective psyche. So high school second language syndrome. So many of us learned a language in secondary school, which is normally like the national second language. And because we had to learn this language and we were kind of forced to, and there are, consequences, bad grades if we didn't learn it, it really wasn't like a great environment to really just naturally embrace and enjoy a language. And because of that, a lot of us now in adulthood, we feel guilty about not speaking this language. Like here in Canada, we were supposed to learn French. We didn't get to learn French. We had to learn French. And so many Canadians feel guilty, like, yeah, I really should speak French, when they don't even want to speak French. Like, where's that coming from? And because of that, people will think like, oh, I'm not good at learning a language. I used to speak a bit of, back in high school, but then I just, and like, that's totally fine, right? You never wanted to learn that in the first place. And it's like, yeah, so we can all relate to this. The old memory myth. So a lot of older people I speak with say, my memory's just not what it used to be. I can't learn a language. And while it's true that if you're like, 85, 90, 100, then yeah, maybe there are going to be just some change you need to account for when it comes to memory. But for most of us, it's fine. Like the actual sort of intelligence that matters, your crystallized intelligence continues to increase through your 20s, 30s, 40s. And that's really what matters when it comes to memory and language, being able to pull words out of your memory and inject them into conversations. So that facet of your intelligence, that facet of your cognition isn't actually impacted. As long as you're learning the language from a place from like the value-based motivation, then you're fine. It's not going to, you're going to be totally fine. Okay, fear of looking stupid. Obviously, we can all understand this. We all know what it's like to, no one wants to be bad at a language in front of a group of people who are great at the language. Obviously, that's embarrassing. But this fear just stops people in their tracks. I know someone who literally is great at Italian, but like within a few days, she's speaking fluently. But she just, she has resistance to crossing that 3-day barrier, to being bad at Italian for 3 days. And it's, so it's a water we all got to dip our toes into, right? Like we just gotta, it's a fear that we have to face. And job security stress. So this is the main one that I have seen underlying sort of the fear-based motivation, has been stress related to job security. Okay. So let's talk, how do you get started now? Like, what do you do now in order to get started? So with vocab, so week 1, week 0 right here, just check out Omniglot phrases in that language. Duolingo, if you're interested, I'm sure you've already gotten started here. And then week 3 to week 15 over here, I would highly suggest getting a copy of a frequency dictionary and So a frequency dictionary lists words in a language by the most to the least frequent. And again, if you remember, you only need to learn like the 3,500, the 4,000 most frequent words, and then you're fine. And then you can have conversations easily. So a frequency dictionary will really help you do that. And then I would recommend, either using someone else's memorize online cue cards is basically what they are. Just think of them as intelligent online cue cards, or you can make your own. So that's sort of the combination that I've seen has been really successful for people. Okay, now let's talk about pronunciation. So a little bit more complicated, and I apologize, but this is I think really the best way of doing it. So one, learn what a phoneme is. Two, learn what the International Phonetic Alphabet is. Three, Google this phrase, so whatever your language is, right? French or Norwegian or whatever. And then just study the Wikipedia page that comes up, and you'll know based on number one and number two, you'll be able to understand this. Now, number four, learn how to pronounce individual letters in the alphabet of your language. And this is the key part. Get a native speaker to give you real-time feedback. So thumbs up or thumbs down. They don't need to talk to you. They just give you thumbs up or thumbs down if you've pronounced that letter correctly. And once you've worked your way through the alphabet and you've pronounced every letter like native level correctly, then great. Then learn how to pronounce syllables using the same system. Then number six, learn how to pronounce entire words. Boom. So I know it's a couple steps here, but that's okay. Okay, now grammar, I'd love to give you some guidance, but honestly, it is so particular to the individual language that it's. For example, in Spanish, most of this is going to be taken up by learning how to conjugate verbs. Whereas in German, a lot more is going to be dedicated to learning different declensions and things like that. So unfortunately, there's no guidance for you there. You'll have to just buy a book or take a course or something. Conversation. So this is what I'd recommend just in the beginning. And again, we're starting week 5, week 9. Just shoot. Maybe you have a friend who speaks the language, or maybe you have you just know a native speaker. Just ask them out for a coffee. Just, hey, I'm learning this language. Could I just be bad in this language at you for a bit? So this acknowledges that you're an amateur and you're buying them a coffee, so they're kind of getting comped for having to listen to you. And really, you want to ask out someone who's a good listener, right? Someone who can not judge you and not try to fix your language, which is a very unpleasant experience. Someone who can just, give you the feedback at the time that you want it, and otherwise just really listen to you. So that's a great way to get started, and that's how you kind of build up from 10 seconds to 2 minutes. And then week 9, and again, this is about the point you're speaking, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Then I'd say go to a language meetup. And language meetups are normally at a cafe. You just meetup.com, search the language. And here's what I recommend just in the beginning. Don't actually speak to anyone at the group. So you're not allowed to speak to anyone at the meetup. Just sit nearby. So this can kind of help you overcome that initial fear, because you can think, well, I'm not actually going to speak to anyone. I'm just going to see what it's like. I'll just sit nearby. I'll just kind of listen in, but mostly I'm not going to interact. And you can use that time to kind of figure out, okay, who's like the nicest, gentlest person here? Then when you go back later, that's friend number 1, right? And because you know they're nice and gentle and they're probably not going to judge you, it'll be easy to introduce yourself into the conversational flow. And then gradually ramping up as the weeks go by. Week 15, boom, you're golden, right? Now go to the country if you're not there already in order to really consolidate your language. And that's it. That is how you get started learning a language in 3 months. Good luck.